So, hi everybody. We have a very special guest here today, Dr. Mark Atkinson. Dr. Mark, thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, it's my absolute pleasure to be here, Pete, and looking forward to diving into what we're going to discuss.
Excellent. So, thanks so much for spending some time with us this morning. And just for our audience benefit, not that you need much introduction, but could you just please um, introduce yourself to our audience?
Yes, I'm very happy to do that. Well, my professional background is I trained as a medical doctor at Imperial College in London and knew very early on in my training that I would end up in what's called integrative medicine. And integrative medicine really has the human being at the heart of it. And it's the kind of relentless pursuit of doing whatever's required in order to help that person to not just be healthy, but thrive as a human being. And really, when you look at the toolbox of an integrative medicine doctor, it looks at what would be considered regular allopathic medicine alongside complementary alternative holistic approaches. It looks at the evidence that's available to them, and it tries to figure out what's right for the individual. And so very early on, that was kind of what my practice was about. This was about 25 years ago. And I kind of wrote about my approach in my very first book, which was The Mind Body Bible. And so since that time, I've kind of shifted and evolved more into what I'd call the educator role. And it's something I've really enjoyed, which is educating, teaching people how to take great care of themselves. And really over the last 15 years, I've been particularly deep diving in what's required for us to thrive as a human being, because health is the foundation. Your health needs to be dialed in, and all aspects of health need to be dialed in. But when you have that energy and vitality and you have a body and mind that works for you, then what is possible? So that's really is where my focus and attention has been the last 15 years.
Wow, I love it. I couldn't agree more, and it just got me thinking when you were just speaking about yourself. 25 years ago, you got into
That's right.
integrative medicine and made that connection that this is something that we all need, really. I think in this modern age.
Yeah.
So you were a real pioneer in this space.
Yes, I guess so. And that's probably, as it is for a lot of us in this space, it's really a function of our own personal journey. And I think, firstly, you have to value health is going to be in your top three. So I've always valued health. I meditated, when I was pretty young. So I had a real interest in contemplative practice, maybe the kind of pursuit of truth beyond what the narrative-based mind tells us. I was always interested in the more esoteric traditions. I was really interested in alternative complementary medicine, particularly Ayurveda, Chinese medicine, Tibetan medicine. Just really had this deep curiosity to know what was true, and if something is helpful, to kind of integrate it and weave it in. So I've had this kind of open-mindedness, but in that open-mindedness is also a high level of discernment, right? Which is you've got
Mm,
to be able to figure out what's right, what's true, what's relevant, where's the evidence, what works for the individual. It gets a little bit kind of complex. But yes, 25 years ago, for sure, there wasn't many of us around then doing that. But, when you're passionate about health and you see how small things can make a difference to the lives of others, and then what happens for a lot of us in this space, the work we do mirrors our own inner journey. And I've come
right.
to appreciate that really sometimes our core wounding and challenges in life, if faced and explored, and we allow it to change and transforms us, then that gives birth to a very unique offering that we then give to the world. And that was absolutely the case when it comes to me. So my battles were emotional and mental health. So that really kind of initiated the journey into those worlds. So then I could talk about it with others from a place of integrity and kind of personal knowing.
I love it. Um, I've got to say, in my own journey, more and more, I've looked back to ancestral wisdom, which you speak about. Thousands of years of
Mm,
knowledge can't be wrong, can't be
right,
that wrong, and
right.
weaving in modern methods with traditional ancestral ones. For me, definitely has been the approach to thriving, for my own thriving
Yes.
and overcoming, and still overcoming chronic issues.
Yeah.
So I love it. And also the fact that you're using your own personal experience and speaking openly
That's right.
about subjects that are almost taboo,
Yes.
mental, emotional health.
Yeah.
Um, More so now people are speaking of it, but not so much, not as much as it is all around us. And
Yeah.
it definitely, we can all benefit from more openness with that, more knowledge, more wisdom, and more
Yeah.
practice of these simple things that help.
Yeah. Agreed. I think it's um, very important that it's easy to hide behind your profession. And what we have to remember is that every doctor is a human being, first and foremost, whose profession is doctoring. And so I think when you can relate as a human being to other human beings and come alongside them to kind of, and I always say, the way to start in health is to really have a clear vision of how your health and how you want your health and life to be.
Yeah,
And it's like, and sometimes we get so caught up in the busyness and complexity and distractions of life, you know, very few of us have taken the time to actually figure out, well, where is it would like to go? And what I've kind of come to understand is not a lot of people have a very high vision for themselves because they're not even aware what is possible. And yet inside of us is what's called the self-actualization impulse, which is this innate movement towards growth and discovery and inner development. And then when we create the right internal conditions for that, and you align with that, then you realize, my gosh, life is here to be lived. We're we're faced with all of these incredible lessons that can change and transform us if we engage with them and open up to them. And there is, beyond the everyday habitual sense of self, a deeper source of wisdom inside of us that is always available to us when we know how to access it. And when we start living from it, it changes everything.
I love it. Um, And it's so difficult, I suppose, these days for us all to connect and sense that and tap into it, that innate
Yes.
wisdom in us, because it is such a confusing, fascinating. I feel privileged to live in these times, but
Yes.
there's a lot going on, and it can take you away from that awareness, self-awareness.
Yeah, it's in fact I would position it like this. If we are habitually caught up in our thinking, by definition, we're not in touch with our intuitive wisdom. And so what happens for a lot of people, and my last book was called True Happiness, so I really deep dive into this, which is that when we're caught up in our head, in our thinking process, in our narratives and stories of judgment and blame, etc., by definition, when we identify with that, we are not in conscious contact with our deeper nature. And so one of the first practices that I teach my students and my clients is really how to temporarily deactivate the thinking process. Because for a lot of people, it's habitual. It's kind of like
Mm.
having the taps on in your house. If you had it constantly on, that would be insane. It's like, the purpose of the tap is it's a control device that allows you to get water when you want it. But when you don't need it, you don't need it to flow. It's the kind of same for the thinking process. So what I'd love to do is kind of share with you and the listeners just a very simple process I teach called the fast shift method that will teach everyone how to just quieten their mind, access what we call still mind. And when you're in still mind and much more in touch with your body, then you're much more connected into a deeper source of wisdom. And it's really easy. All you have to do is
Wonderful.
firstly, you allow your eyes to be soft. We hold a lot of tension in our eyes. And as you allow your eyes to be soft and defocus and just tune into the spaciousness all around, the
Can I do this
relaxation
now?
yes, I think that would be great.
Okay,
So,
this
and
sounds
you can
good. I'm
notice
gonna.
what happens. So you're going to
Okay.
allow your eyes to be soft
Mm.
and defocus. So you're noticing just the kind of periphery of your vision. You're tuning into the space all around you. And then without thinking, you allow your tongue to be completely soft. Soft tongue, soft eyes, mouth open slightly. Allow your tongue to be completely soft. And notice what just happened to your mind and to your mental chatter. What do you notice?
Quiet.
It goes quiet. So keep it relaxed and soft. And now go back to the front of your head to start thinking again about a problem. And as you're thinking about a problem, notice what's happened to your tongue.
Mm.
It's got tense, right? And it's
Got
just
tense.
moving
Yeah.
around.
Mm.
Now relax the tongue again. Soft eyes. And then allow your mind to go quiet again. Okay, very good. You can eyes open. So what's happening here is when we are caught up in our thinking process, we're doing what's called subvocalization, which is we're having a private mental chatter to ourselves. And that correlates with the tension patterns of the tongue. So you can intervene in that process. You just consciously relax the tongue and it stops subvocalization. And you know what? For a lot of people, it's the first time they've genuinely experienced a quiet mind without distraction. So I think for a lot of people, that's a good starting place, which is, because a lot of people, they go throughout the day and they're not really thinking, they're being thought, right? The thoughts are happening to them. The
Yes.
stories are happening to them, right? So they're at the effect, right? So when you start to kind of take control of your nervous system and how your mind functions, in my mind, that is one of the first foundations for human thriving. And we can go through what I call the 5 pillars, because what we need to do is we need to build the solid foundations. But to be honest with you, when you know how to work with your mind and your emotions, then it changes everything. But that's when most people struggle, because a lot of us will focus exclusively on our physical health
Mm.
without looking at the same time at our emotional and mental health. And if we are keen to enjoy a high level of well-being, to access inner peace and joy, to feel connected and able to receive love in life, then we have to work on your emotional and mental health as well.
Amazing. So powerful. We're 12 minutes in, and already we have a technique that we can do anywhere. I mean, we're having a conversation,
That's
and I
right.
said, "Can I do this now?" And genuinely felt a sense of calm,
Yeah.
just with the soft focus,
Right.
and also relaxing my tongue.
Yeah.
It's a natural response that, even though
Yes.
I'm active in a conversation and we're recording this,
Right.
I felt it. So this is something that people can
Yes.
take and use everywhere.
Yes.
No
Yeah.
cost,
No cost.
free of
There's no cost
charge.
to it. And
Don't
the
need
nice
any
thing is,
tools.
it's kind of using these practices as you go about your day so that
Yeah.
you're more in charge of your state. Our state is our way of being right now in the present moment. It's our depth of presence. It's how regulated our nervous system is. It's the amount of energy we're bringing to the moment. It's our level of awareness. All of that we have control over
Mm,
when you know how to control it. The
mm,
challenge is, as it was for me, I had no idea how to control it. I was just as I was because that's, well, how I was, right?
yeah.
And in a way, it's kind of, we call that kind of victim consciousness, where we're at the effect of our programming and conditioning,
Mm,
right? And then we kind of, we complain about our busy mind and happiness, etc. But no, here's the thing: we can learn some simple principles and practices that, if we're committed to applying, can make a real difference. And it really
mm,
starts by learning how to manage your mind.
mm,
Because most people's mind, as it was for me, is kind of all over the place. It's scattered, it's
mm,
focused on what's wrong, it's focused on distractions, it gets sucked into social media. If we're sucked into social media or in addictions, by definition, that's feedback we're not in charge of our mind.
mm, mm.
There's a deeper programming running us.
It's so impressive to me because you mentioned before we can get hung up with titles, and as doctors sit at the top of society,
Mm,
you can rest on your laurels, I suppose. That I suppose, as with all people, we can in life, and others, because of course it's probably the most responsible of all jobs, really. I can think of one or two other airline pilot, for instance.
Mm.
But you're supporting people, or meant to be supporting people, in the most valuable asset they have, which is their health and their wellness, their energy.
Right.
And you had
Yes.
the consciousness to think, well, if I'm not there, how can I
Hmm.
help others? So very,
Yeah.
very impressive. I love it. And you spoke earlier about the 5 pillars,
Yes.
which is something that really fascinates me and I
Mm.
find very interesting of yours, that,
Yeah.
what it truly means to thrive as a human being. So
Yes.
um, I'd love it if you could talk us through these 5 pillars, and
Very
we can
happy
learn
to
from
do
that as
that.
well.
Yeah, very.
Thank you.
It's a foundation of a course called Thrive Unlimited, offered by the School of Biohacking. It's a 35-day journey which really summarizes everything I've learned about human health and personal development. It's built around 5 pillars. Pillar number one is self-care. You just got to start with self-care. And what I mean by self-care is you genuinely care for yourself. And if we care for about anything, we have to come from the heart, because caring is an act and expression of the heart. So we have to know how to access our heart, and from our heart start caring for ourselves. And that means the foundations. It's physical self-care, and it's emotional self-care, and psychological self-care. So I kind of unpack all of that. But, it's kind of as you would expect. It's taking care of our nutrition, making sure we're hydrated. It's getting enough quality sleep. It's taking the right supplements. It's moving our body. It's ensuring that we're exercising and stimulating both our body and mind. And then it also means that the emotional side, it means we're also doing meaningful work, that we have at least one or two people around us that we can go to for support, and to give support, that we have a sense of autonomy, a sense that we can choose, that we feel competent in some domain of life. So really the kind of self-care is where we want to start. And then once you kind of dial that in, then you move to pillar two, which is called self-optimization. So this is the realm of what we call biohacking 2.0, which is how you dial it in, right? So how you really dial in your sleep, your performance, your energy, your mood, your happiness. And that's when we get into the detail and the minutiae. And I say, that's fantastic, but make sure it's on the foundation of self-care, and
Yeah.
that you're not over focused on what typically is physical health and performance at the
Mm.
expense of the emotional and psychological aspect of self-optimization. We want a balance between the two. So really, those are the two foundations. And I think that's kind of where most people kind of need to start. But here's the nice thing. Once you've dialed in your self-care and your health is kind of optimized, then you have the energy and the means and the heart to then place it in service of your own inner growth and development, from which comes your contribution to the world. So we move from pillar two to pillar three, which is about self-mastery, which is we must learn how to regulate our nervous system, use and develop our mind, and work more skillfully with our emotions. And that is challenging work. So, when I started that work, like about 20 years ago, it felt like I was in kindergarten, right? So when my therapist was saying, "What are you feeling, Mark?" I did not know, because I felt numb, right? And I didn't have
Yeah.
emotional literacy to describe what I was feeling. So I was in kindergarten. Um, the result of that journey was True Happiness, Your Guide to Emotional Health, my book. So I kind of then went on to share with others. But boy, was that challenging. And it required also me, and I believe we all need to do this, is to admit to ourselves, where are we struggling in life? Where are we out of integrity? What aspect of my life and my behavior does not reflect me at my healthiest and my best? And for me, it was addictions. So I had some addictions that were kind of going on. And what was required in order to move into pillars 4 and 5 was to get honest about their presence, and then to get the necessary help and support to navigate them. And that really is when we get honest and real about where our struggle is, and we're out of integrity and get the help and support, a gateway opens into pillar 4, which is self-actualization, which is the unfoldment of our unique potential. And that requires us to face and explore and embrace our shadow. And our shadow is all the parts of us that we've kind of hidden away or pushed away. And that shadow integration work then enables us to access a deeper, more wholesome sense of self, certainly a much more mature and grounded and conscious sense of self. And then from there, we can then also expand into pillar 5, which is self-transcendence, which is to allow the awakening process that's available to us all to wake us up beyond identification with the separate egoic sense of self. And then when we wake up to reality, we realize we're innately connected and whole. And so what we want to do is not jump to pillar 5, the path of self-transcendence, and to head straight to a monastery at the expense of the other pillars, right? So we kind of put it as like, you're going to start somewhere, but there's a natural order to it. Start with your self-care, have your foundations, dial in your energy, your sleep, your nervous system, work with your mind. Start developing your potential, develop your strengths, work with your shadow, and at the same time, start opening up to reality and allowing life's moments to contact you deeply and to change you. So those are the 5 pillars in a nutshell.
Very, very powerful. Just to listen to you eloquently describe those 5 pillars. They sound logical. I think to most of us, they could also sound a little bit overwhelming. And
That's right.
this is why I like how you break them down with starting with the self-care.
Yeah. Yeah.
Do you think that these are, we spoke earlier about ancestral wisdom and a more ancestral way of living. Do you think we struggle more to go through these different stages in life, or do you think that these are in this day and age? Do you think this was something that was done more regionally in different cultures? Is it still going on?
Yeah.
Who can we look to who is
Yes.
following these different processes well?
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, either
Yeah.
currently or in the past or both.
My kind of perception is that in a healthy society, the society and the culture around it is set up to naturally guide children and adults through these developmental stages and through deliberate rites of passage, honoring different requirements at different levels of development. And my understanding is that nature-based communities and societies are way better at doing that. And particularly those who are deeply connected into a spiritual system that honors nature and our essential nature, sees the goodness and the spirit in each other, and come together as a community to support the thriving of the community. Now, what happens in the Western world is we're so individualistic and we're disconnected from community and, parents and caregivers, etc., because they haven't gone through their own developmental kind of journey. They're at a loss really what to do. And then we got peer pressure, then we got sucked into distractions. And so essentially what we have is a whole bunch of adults, and this was certainly me, who arrive into adulthood, but are still psychologically immature, right? And they know they are because of the way they act, the way they feel when they get triggered activated. They kind of feel like a kid again. And so we have this absence of community holding, grounded in nature and a relationship to nature and to the elements, without a guiding spiritual system designed to nurture our own unique relationship with a deeper sense of wholeness and meaning that doesn't require kind of doctrinal belief. So I think we just have a whole bunch of us, millions and millions of Westerners at sea. We're doing the best we can, but we're not thriving because we're not engaging developmentally with some fundamental task. And it has to start with a caring relationship to self, to community, and to nature. It has to be heart-centered. And so most of
Mm.
us just live up here in our head. We live in our private virtual reality, thinking this is life, this is how it is. No, when you get out of your head into your heart and into reality, everything changes. The world you
Mm.
experience, the way you feel completely changes. But why is it so hard to live in your heart? Because a lot of us have unprocessed wounds around the heart through moments of rejection, through moments of complete overwhelm. And when we're unable to feel those and process those wounds, then we have to live outside of our direct experience, which is in the body, and we go to what I call the cave. And the cave is the front of the head, where most of us habitually live. And we know we're there because we'll be constantly thinking all the time. And when we look out of these eyeballs, we see a world that we perceive as being separate. And then what we'll notice is if we look long enough, we'll start judging what we see, right? So that's
Yeah.
when we live in the cave. And the journey of life and into love is really when you come out of the cave into your heart, but you have to process your wounds, your unprocessed emotions, and you have to start liberating yourself from a whole bunch of beliefs that we've picked up from society and the people around us and ourselves that are limiting and distorting our experience of reality. And that is the kind of inner work. But we do have millions of Westerners who are looking for this. That's why self-help is
Mm.
so popular, right?
Yeah. Absolutely.
And there are many, many amazing authors and teachers all offering a system. Like I offer a system. There's plenty out there. So I think the most important thing is not that the solution isn't available. It's actually making it a priority within your life to take great care of your health and then to have the courage to do the necessary inner work to truly thrive. And then to have the support system around you. AKA, we all need mentors, guides, therapists, community. Don't do it alone.
Yeah. Such words of wisdom. And at the beginning of that piece, you mentioned about in a healthy society, and you also spoke further about the West because it's no surprise. It's probably 2025 in the West is not the healthiest
Mhm.
time mentally, and you're
Mm.
pointing to the front of the brain. This is the
Yes.
human. Is it the executive function, prefrontal
Yeah,
cortex, like
that's right.
human part of the brain, which
That's right.
is a great thing if controlled, but I'm
That's
guessing
right.
can cause a lot of problems for us human beings.
Yes. Well, it does. I mean, it's a gift and a curse. It becomes a
Mm.
curse if it's the only tool we use,
Mm.
right? If we constantly intellectualizing everything, you're mentalizing the present moment, then it creates distortion. You know, the purpose of the prefrontal cortex is the ability to step out of the flow of experience, to get perspective on where we're at, to decide where we want to go, then to strategize how to get there. Then we need to get back in the river again of life. And the
Mm.
river of life is within the body, right? We're not supposed to live up there. That would be, I often describe it this way, is that your deeper nature is like an ocean, but we spend all the time on the beach. We can sense the ocean from the beach. We can sense how inviting it is. But if we're constantly up on our head thinking all the time, then we're not in the ocean. And the ocean is where everything is that we want: the love, the
Mm.
connection, the joy, the contentment. These are all qualities of the ocean, our deeper nature. So the only way we can get into the ocean is twofold. One is we have to come out of the cave. So the fast shift method I just kind of shared with you is the first way.
Mm.
And the second way is we must create internal safety. And this is really important because what we now know is that most of us, our stress response is always on. It's a survival imperative to lean into the possibility of threat. So it's always on unless there is a presence of cues of safety. The cues of safety deactivate the stress response, place us in that body into connection. And the way we create internal safety is through the second practice I teach called always welcoming. And what that means is as you go throughout your day, be welcoming of what shows up in your inner experience. Whatever emotion comes up, you welcome it. How do you do that? You just silently say to it, and everyone can do this now as they're listening to my voice. You literally just speak into your interior world, your inner world. You just silently say, welcome, welcome, welcome. And as you say that, what will happen is the breath will naturally deepen, the body will relax, and then you go to the next level. And this is a beautiful Taoist practice I was taught about 25 years ago called the inner smile. And this is amazing. And I've taught this to many clients, some of whom have got significant anxiety, that this has really helped to calm down. And what you do is as you go about your day, you have an inner smile. And it's just a practice. You just imagine the smile arising from your heart like the sun, starting to express and expand itself, moving into your face, moving into your eyes. And then as you allow this to expand, the body relaxes. We naturally drop into the body out of the cave, and our tension in our body starts to soften. And then we move back into our flow of experience. So if our mind is quiet, soft eye, soft tongue, and we're creating internal welcoming through the inner smile, that immediately puts us into what I call presence. And presence is a dynamic state where you're in touch with your deeper nature being, and you're present, you're stable, you're here, and you're attuned to what is unfolding. And so that really is the kind of foundational work. And well, here's the amazing thing. When you create internal safety, it turns off stress. And most of us live in a habitual state of chronic stress. Because what we're doing is we're constantly saying, I should not be feeling this. This situation should not be happening. That person should not be. And the moment we message a no, 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 and a lot of us do that, particularly if we've got a strong inner critic, the body perceives that as an impending threat, and it will
Mm.
tighten down and prepare you to fight, flight, or flee, or it will freeze you so you don't feel. If there is no genuine threat, that is not serving a functional purpose. So therefore, we control our stress response by welcoming whatever is there, even though we don't want it to be there. The reality is, it is there. You welcome that, you align with it, then you can work with it. So those are just kind of some foundational principles
I
that,
love it.
that most people find very helpful.
In 30 minutes, we've covered so much useful, um, actionable foundations really to go about our lives. I mean, as you're speaking, I'm thinking this should be taught in school. This should be fundamental learnings for everybody, especially
Agreed.
in the West, especially
Yes.
now. And
Yeah.
I suppose, and you're really breaking it down. And I'm just thinking for our audience, and you've broken it down into the 5 pillars.
Mm,
What would you say would be a starting point for most people these days? And I'd like you to
yes.
take your view of where people generally are, who
Yes.
may be watching this conversation, and
Yeah.
what would be a good starting point for them to really get started on this journey. And then I'd like to talk a little bit more about how people can find you and take things to the next stage should
Great.
they wish to.
Great. Yeah, fantastic. So I think the best place to start is to acknowledge the truth of where we're at. And that really starts with an audit. How is my physical health? How is my happiness? How is my life? How are my relationships? How is my work? And so it's just taking an honest audit as to where I'm currently at. How's my energy? How's my sleep? So I think you start with where you're currently at. And there's subjective assessments and objective assessments for doing that. And then I think the next step is, how do you want your health to be in 12 months? We must have a vision for how we want it to be, which is, I want to be sleeping consistently 7.5, 8 hours and wake up feeling energized and happy. I want my happiness level to be much higher so I'm not so stressed all the time. I want to be doing work that is meaningful. I want to wake up on a Monday and look forward to my week. So we must have a vision for that, because then we're directing our brains that is where we want to go. Then the second thing is, what is the one habit as it relates to my health that if I change would make a real positive improvement? What's just the one thing? Most of us already know what it is, right? I go to bed too late, right? I eat way too much sugar. I don't exercise. I look at my screens in bed. I'm dehydrated. I don't drink enough water. I don't hydrate properly. I don't expose myself to morning sunlight. So it's just like, what is the one thing if I changed would make the greatest difference? You identify it. And then you say to yourself, why is it important I make this difference? If we're not connected to the why, we'll probably do nothing about it. And then you make a commitment. Here's the one thing I'm going to change. And I'm going to do it for a week. And if after a week it's going well, I'm going to continue with it. And then maybe add in another habit. But I find for most people is, if you're tired or struggling with fatigue, then it's really hard to make change. Because to make change, we need energy, right? Energy is the capacity to do work and to bring what is possible into reality. So I always feel energy is kind of where you start. And the fundamentals are sleep, quantity and quality, nutrition, hydration, movement, and light. So I think you kind of go through those, you dial those in. And here's the nice thing, at the same time as you're doing all of this, if I was listening to me and I thought, well, that inner smile was kind of intriguing and that fast shift method was intriguing, I would be doing all of that at the same time. So what you can do is you can retrain your nervous system. It's like whatever's happening in life, however challenging life is, you can find an inner sense of contentment by cultivating this inner smile. And so you can get to a place like, okay, my life is not how I want it to be. This is not what I planned. This is not what I asked for. But at the same time, I can access inner contentment. I can be okay. Now, that is impossible for the majority of people to understand until you've experienced. It's like, what are you talking about? My life is not how I want to be. How on earth can I be okay? Right? That's because you're identified with your life situation, and that's in charge of how you feel. You can train your nervous system and mind to be okay, to feel connected. And then, so that is why the inner smile practice, the fast shift method, I will be doing those alongside taking care of your health habits. I choose one health habit at a time, build momentum. And as we all know, as you build positive momentum, then it's much easier to stack in other habits as well.
Yeah. I love how you've broken it down. And I guess wherever anyone is in their life at the moment, however happy they are or not, we can all apply one thing. And
Yeah.
we're very aligned because, I completely agree. Just starting with energy, starting with light, starting with a real night's sleep, quality and quantity. I'm asking people all the time, how's your sleep? And usually the automatic response is fine.
Yeah.
But when we discuss it, it's not. So a good
Right.
night's sleep is fundamental.
It is.
Real food for human beings.
That's right.
I talk about what our grandmother's grandmother ate. You won't go too far wrong, seasonal, regional. If you feel bad on
Yeah.
something, don't touch it. Hydration and an appropriate movement. How many people over do too much?
Yeah.
More is better
Yeah.
these days. And I found that when we work with clients at Optimal Hydration and PEMFiT, if we're not doing those fundamentals, we won't get a result, really. We can apply individual things and say, hey, everything is great, but
Right.
that has to be really a starting point, and the things that we
Yes.
all have control over.
There you go. I
Um,
think that's such an important insight. And
yeah,
I think what we can do is evolve our thinking collectively from what can I take to what can I do to how do I choose to live,
Yeah.
right? So when we deal in how do I choose to live, and we have to make health a top 3 value, because if it is not a top 3 value, it's just not going to happen. That's why I think it's really helpful to get clear about what the vision is and why it matters.
Yeah.
And some people still struggle with that, right? They kind of struggle to articulate a vision. And the other way to go with that is, what's your worst fear about your health as you get older? And you're connecting with
Mm.
that, and you use fear to motivate you. If a
Yeah.
positive vision doesn't motivate you and lock you in, well, get clear about what your worst fear is when you hit your 70s. What's your worst fear? To have Alzheimer's? Right? To have a
Mm.
stroke, really feel into the reality of that. Who do you know has had that, right?
Mm.
And so sometimes we just have to find the thing that connects us to the energy and the emotion that moves us into action. Um, but I think that's why we say pillar 1 is self-care. It's just dialing in
Mm.
your self-care. Um,
Mm.
and I think an important part of that you touched on is hydration. And what a lot of people don't realize is hydration is not just about drinking water. You also need electrolytes as well. You need the
Mm.
combination of electrolytes and high quality water, and you need to be drinking enough of it. And that needs to be alongside a whole food, nutrition based diet. And you need to be letting go of the added sugars and the ultra processed foods. And then what we do is we build positive momentum when we clean up our diet, when we clean up our water, when we clean up the way we live our life, we clean up the bedtime routines. Where we want to get to is a
Mm.
place of good routines. And so when I work with clients, it's just like, let's build out step by step a morning routine.
Mm.
Then let's build out an evening routine. If we dial both of those in, either end of the day, it's going to set you up well. So I think we can go from individual habits and steps, but we want to build out healthy routines, because what determines the quality of our day typically is what we do in the first hour or two of the day. And all I will say is, the people I know who genuinely are thriving, which means they have a high level of inner well-being and fulfillment, and they have a high level of outer success, whatever success means to them. What they all have in common, pretty much, at least the ones I know, is they have dialed in their routines.
Yeah.
And they put energy and they safeguard those routines. It's like the most important thing they can do. Like, I have an hour's routine in the morning, right? It's just, I do it every morning. Why? Not because I'm saying I should do or I need to, because I love doing it. Because
Mm.
I notice how it makes me feel and how it
Mm.
sets up my day. I'm a better human being for doing my morning routines. Uh, so I think
Non-negotiables.
moving to routines is important. The non-negotiables. That's right.
Yeah. No, I completely agree. And it is those easy to action routine. And as you say, when you follow these things, you know, if you don't do them, you know immediately the difference.
Yes.
It's not a case of I don't need to read any studies. I know if I you mentioned hydration. If I don't hydrate properly, things don't work as well. If I get a headache, it's typically because I've not drunk appropriately. And as you say, it's
Mm-hmm.
the quality and you know what we need as humans, electrolytes in the water at the right time. And I just wake up and my body starts talking to each other, and things start to happen, and energy comes, and
Yes.
all is
Yeah.
good.
Yeah.
So, well, this has been the most fascinating conversation for me, and I'm very certain I'd like to think for the audience as well. Could you, and I'd love to do another one, and we maybe deep dive into
Sure.
other areas, but
Yeah.
um, could you please just describe to our audience where it's best to find you if they want to find out more information about yourself, Dr. Mark, and your methods?
Yeah, of course. Yeah. So personal website, drmarkatkinson.com. And a lot of my courses are held at the School of Biohacking.com. So you got Thrive Unlimited, which is the 5 pillars. We've also got a certification program to focus on optimal health, longevity, biohacking, which was a real delight to kind of create. I've also got a course there on supplements as well, called Supplement Mastery Pro. So if you want educational stuff, that's the place to go. And if you want to contact me directly through my website, drmarkatkinson.com.
Wonderful, thank you. And just to be clear, this is online. We don't physically have to go anywhere. We can
Online.
access this
That's
information
right.
online. That's wonderful.
Yes.
So
And there's
everyone
my
can
books
access
as
it.
well. The Mind
Yeah,
Body Bible was the first one. Then I had the Holistic Health Secrets for Women, and then True Happiness, which is all about the emotional and mental health side of it. So those are the books to check out if reading's your thing.
wonderful. Well, really appreciate your time, Dr. Mark. It's been just a fascinating conversation, and in 45 minutes or so, there's just so many valuable takeaways that we can all. I know I'll be doing later today,
Very good.
several times in the day, and I really appreciate it. So thank you so much, and we'll hopefully catch up with you again soon.
Sounds great. Thank you so much for having me on, Pete.
Thanks, Dr. Mark. Thank you. Bye bye.
Bye bye.